What's up? Welcome back YouTube. It's finally been a week since the release of Wander on the Genshin Impact live servers, so it's finally time to answer the ultimate question, which is he meta or not, and if he's worth World Primo. Now of course, a lot of you probably might already have an idea about his current position in the Genshin Impact meta, and the answer is that he's quite mid, or average as another word, which means that he's not the best character, not the most OP broken characters, but he's not that bad either. However, with that being said, I think his meta position is really interesting, and it's definitely the first we have seen, and that is depending on if you have C6 Faruzan or not, his meta strength will dramatically change. So let's do a deep dive today. And with that being said, as always, if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to subscribe and let's get started. Wander, just like the other mid-tier characters, you can pretty much expect similar performance to the other mid-tier characters. In fact, Xiao is one of the perfect comparisons to Wander since they're both Anemo main DPS. The biggest caveat here is that the performance you get out of your Wander dramatically depend on the constellation you have on your Faruzan. Either you have C6 or not. With our constellation 6 Faruzan, Wander performance is rather mediocre and often overtaken by other mid-tier characters, but if you do have C6 Faruzan, then Wander performance dramatically increase and can be said to be above average, especially since he is Anemo and a little bit more versatile than the other characters in the game. If you want to bring out the true potential of Wander, owning a C6 Faruzan is absolutely required. Not only it give him a dramatical damage spike, but it also kind of help him fix his gameplay problem, which we covered in the first impression video about a little bit. Although they are minor gameplay problem, they are mostly there as inconvenient, and Faruzan having C6 conveniently also just kind of help or fix some of those problems a lot. If you remember in the past, MiHoYo really liked to put powerful constellation at the constellation 2 mark for the 5-star characters. You have Yelan C2, Ranan C2, Ayaka C2, and so on. Now while Wander C1 and C2 are not dramatically powerful, the thing here is that owning C6 Faruzan could be argued to be similar to owning C2 Wander. I guess it is not exactly the same, but what I'm trying to help you visualize is that the power level of owning C6 Faruzan or not is more or less equivalent to getting 2 constellation on the 5-star characters, and the difference is absolutely huge. The general recommendation here is that without a C6 Faruzan, your best play is usually just to ditch out Faruzan and put Wander into a different archetype team, like either Double Hydro, maybe a national team, maybe a Taser team, maybe a Hyper Bloom team. Now the biggest benefit about Wander is that yeah, he's Anemo and he's rather flexible, but the problem is that without pairing Faruzan into his party, you just lack so much potential on your Wander that for the most part, he just get outclassed by many of the other characters who can fill the same slot. Usually one of those is Sucrose, who just much more suited as a Anemo driver, especially in team like Tasers or Hyper Bloom, and the list kind of go on. If I were to be honest though, even when you're pairing him with some of the best support in the game, let's say Double Hydro, overall the team rotation damage is still not that great without C6 Faruzan. And yeah, they are not terrible, they're still quite decent, but you are lacking a lot of potential there. And it's just so hard to recommend pulling for Wander without a C6 Faruzan, which is where the Catch-22 come in. At the current moment, in order to obtain a C6 Faruzan, you have to heavily wish on the Wander banner, which depending on the yuck, you might or might not get a C6 Faruzan just before you get a Wander pull. There are people who are getting C6 Scara or Wander without completing their C6 Faruzan. So it's kind of a catch-22 because, well, you have to fully invest into Wander, but then you still don't know if you can get a C6 Faruzan and you don't know how much you can invest into. With a C6 Faruzan, that's where he starts to truly shine, especially as a Anemo character. You can start to draft him into many different teams to get decent performance, but one of the biggest upside is that you can draft a triple Anemo setup together with Venti, and in this case Faruzan have the benefit of being able to increase Venti and Wander damage. On top of that, Venti and Faruzan have unstoppable CC that just make Wander destroy any AoE content with his charge attack spam playstyles. On the note of charge attack playstyles, his charge attack playstyle is relatively simple and straightforward, and it's really effective, while there are a little bit more octable combos such as N2C, especially if you're running with a normal attacking required support like Xingqiu or Yelan. In general, I would recommend trying to just do the charge attack playstyles because it is so simple yet so effective. It might not be the best, but it is there. But yeah, if you have a C6 Faruzan, he is pretty decent. He's on some kind of top of the line meta breaking characters, but it's pretty much what you would expect from a mid-tier characters, or maybe even a little bit higher than mid if you have a C6 Faruzan. The only kickers come from if you don't have a C6 Faruzan, then his performance drops so much that it make it hard to recommend pulling for him. And the only way you can tell if you're gonna get a C6 Faruzan is if you fully invest into the banner, which is not something anyone can do, and it's not something I can recommend either. As a quick side note, a lot of people are probably wondering where does he stand relative to his Anemo DPS peer Xiao, but the thing you have to know is that Xiao also get a massive benefit by having C6 Faruzan. Aside from the increase in Anemo crit damage, most importantly, Faruzan have really good energy funnel into Xiao, really good grouping for Xiao, and really importantly, Anemo resistance shred. So when you do obtain a C6 Faruzan, the power level of Xiao jump quite high as well, and overall I would say they're still relatively the same as they both get a big jump. So pretty much come down to which one do you prefer. At the end of the day, I think Wander is a okay character if you do want to pull for him because you really like him. But the thing you have to be aware is just that you have to be ready to probably fully commit to him. His artifact set that just came out is a really important artifact set to farm for him. There is a fairly big difference in damage for his artifact set compared to any of the existing artifact set. And of course, the most importantly is that you should try to get a C6 Faruzan. And of course, this is where the disclaimer come in, is that don't spend money you can't afford. Getting a 4 stars could arguably sometimes be harder than getting a 5 stars because there's no guarantee. And again, just to remind you, I know it is sad, but some guy out there got a C6 scaramouche without C6 Faruzan. With him being so dependent on a C6 Faruzan, and even then he's still just a relatively mid-tier character, honestly I just can't really recommend people pulling for these characters because the investment is so high, yet your return isn't that great. I wouldn't say there isn't no return or like bad return, but I wouldn't say it's the greatest return again compared to the existing super strong meta breaking characters. Wander isn't that. If Faruzan was more functionable without Constellation 6, or Faruzan Constellation was just easier to obtain, such as how the starter Constellation are easier to obtain because they're in the shop, plus we have so many banners of them by now if you have been playing for a while. Honestly, I would happy to say that Wander is a fairly balanced character, and if you were to ask me on a scale of 1 to 5 where would I put Wander, I'd probably give him a 3, as in it's okay if you pull for him, just know that you need to have Faruzan and therefore he's a fairly decent character. But the problem is you have to have Faruzan now in order to make him a fairly decent character, and because of how hard it is to obtain a C6 Faruzan and how she's just not very good before that, I think I have to drop his recommendation just by a little bit, and therefore if I were to recommend Scaramouche to someone, I would give it a 2.5 out of 5, which is I would hesitate on it unless you really like him and you're ready to fully commit into him. And again, in that case, he's okay. It is really interesting to see that in the end, both his strength and weaknesses are his flexibility. You can easily bring all kind of support into his party as he's a hyper carry that is Anemo, but at the same time, he is strictly tied to Faruzan. So there's that. But overall, it's okay characters, brand new characters, interesting playstyles, but again, he is not top of the line meta breaking, just a fairly average 5-star main DPS or hyper carry. But with that being said, that is pretty much the meta analysis for Wanderers. Hopefully this video doesn't disappoint too many people. And with that being said, again, thank you guys so much for watching. I have some special thing coming up, and I'll see you guys in a little bit.